While we continue to remember the fallen photojournalist, giant Sam Nzima, who passed away last weekend. Nzima is best known for taking the iconic photo of Hector Pieterson during the June 1976 Soweto uprising. For more on the legacy of the landsman, we are joined by Wits University's Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Tawana Kupe. Professor Kupe, thank you so much for joining me. This picture by Sam Nzima, and you know, we always start the conversation about the man from his work. This particular picture of Hector Pieterson being carried there after he had been shot, it made the list of the 100 most influential pictures ever taken, but that doesn't even begin to fully capture how this picture bent the arc of history, does it?
No, it doesn't, because I think this kind of picture is one of those events in history that you can describe in William Blake's terms in his poem Easter 1916 about the Irish uprising. He used a line called "A terrible beauty is born." And I was an oxymoron. Beauty in the sense that the photograph is well taken. It shows the professional man at his best. But it is about a terrible event, and a terrible event that spoke to the inhumanity of the apartheid system. Because the picture has been circulated for so long, people have forgotten even to ask how old was a young man that was whose body was being carried lifeless. He was 12. That is killing a person at the tenderest age in their own life. And I think that spoke volumes about the nature of the apartheid system, that it was killing not just youth, young people, but hope, but the hope of generations of people to recreate a new society. So in a sense, Hector Pieterson in that photograph represents a sacrifice that went into the liberation of South Africa. And that is why I think that the photo attained that global iconic status.
In fact, before we continue our conversation, let's take a listen to Sam Nzima, the late Sam Nzima himself, actually talking about that particular picture and describing what it meant to him and how it was taken.
This picture played a very important role in South Africa towards change. The contribution of this picture made South Africa to open their eyes to see what was happening. The little children which were mowed down by the police, the brutality of the police in South Africa, it was exposed by this picture. The picture is loved by all the organizations in South Africa. It's loved by all the youth of South Africa. They are using it as a symbol of the struggle, as a symbol of the June 16, the Youth Day. Without this picture, there is no symbol of June 16 that can emphasize the point that this is the day. But this picture is there to do that as a symbol of the struggle. For the
man himself, Professor Kupe, of course, the picture was taken under really difficult circumstances, and I'm actually amazed at the ability to frame up and be able to capture emotion on the faces of the people in the picture. But things have moved on over the decades, and South Africa is a democracy now, but still facing a number of huge stories that are unfolding on a daily basis that require lensmen to really practice their craft. What is the legacy for the up-and-coming photographers that Sam Nzima leaves?
And as he says in the clip that you just showed, it was a symbol of the struggle against apartheid. And also that is why, in a sense, it spoke volumes to many people across the world and awakened the consciousness in South Africa. You will remember that in many protests about what is called, we now call service delivery protests. One happened in the Free State a few years ago when somebody was shot dead. I mean, that kind of, and again, a lensman took a beautiful photo of, I think that man, if I'm not mistaken, that person was called Tawana as well.
Andres Tatane.
Yes. If you remember that picture as well, when you see that picture, it evokes the memory of Hector Pieterson. But also it speaks now to the symbolism of unfulfilled hopes in post-1994 South Africa. You've seen other similar kind of photos in attacks on African nationals.
Yes,
who are considered.
That picture of Emmanuel Sithole, the Mozambican who was killed in Alexandra in 2015.
In 2015. In 2008, there was yet another person who was actually burnt, and colleagues of mine wrote a book, actually edited a book called Go Home or Die Here. And last night, ironically, I opened an exhibition by two photographers, James Otway, who took the Mozambican picture, and Alon Skay, who took the xenophobic attacks in 2008. And again, you get these iconic pictures that speak to people's anguish, people's the murder and mayhem that often happens in this particular context, but speaking to a larger story and a larger narrative around what happens when hopes are not fulfilled and those who want to destroy hope and the future.
Very quickly, did you personally meet, I imagine you did, Sam Nzima, and what is your lasting memory of him?
No, I think he was a very humble person. If he had not been told that he's a photographer, you wouldn't actually have known. And also, it is true, by the way, that for many years, people actually, if you did a test or a quiz on who took that picture, people might have attributed it to Bernard Magovane, to Peter Magovane, or some other photographer. So he's unassuming, humble, and it shows you that he didn't take that photograph in order to seek glory. It is what he saw with his eye and with his camera. He took the picture that described the essence of what apartheid
And it didn't
is.
exist in isolation. He was part of a generation and a culture.
Absolutely, yes,
that kind of brave journalism.
Yeah, so we're journalists and photographers. We're not mere journalists and photographers, you know, plying a profession. They were part of the panoply or the architecture of people contributing to a struggle against an evil and killing system.
Right, Professor Tawana Kupe, thank you so much for coming through and talking to us and paying tribute to the iconic Sam Nzima, the late Sam Nzima.